first two races of the season are over and it has been absolute domination by the Red Bull duo of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez as they scored their second 1-2 of the season. And in today's video, I am going to be doing a race data analysis from the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now, let's get straight into the video. As usual, I'll be talking about the top 5 teams, which is Aston Martin, Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari and Red Bull later on, so stick around for that. Yes, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix is over and it was domination, but that should have been expected. I did say in my preview and predictions that Saudi will be very strong for Red Bull. The circuit is low tyre wear, high speed and the surface is very smooth. You can see that the tyre wear was very low in Saudi Arabia because all the teams did a very easy one-stop, with most of them using the mediums and the hard tyres. The tyre wear was so low that drivers were able to go over 30 laps on the medium tyres and continue to go faster and faster. Some drivers were able to start on the mediums and go to the soft tyres at the end of the race, and this was the case because we saw that for Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes and McLaren's Lando Norris. The hard tyres were so durable that drivers stopped on lap 8 under the safety car, stopped for hard tyres and did the rest of the race with no issues. And they also continued to go faster and faster, and you can see that because the fastest lap of the Grand Prix was set on the final lap of the race by Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and that was a 1:31.632. At this point, those hard tyres were 42 laps old. As you would have expected, the top speed in Saudi Arabia was much higher than the top speed at the Bahrain Grand Prix as well. We saw that in qualifying and we also saw it during the Grand Prix. To show that, I brought up the top speed from each team in the race. From this list, there is a few surprises, but let me explain. The top speed was set by Alex Albon in the Williams, and that was 344 km per hour. But the slowest top speed was set by Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso, as his top speed was only 327 km per hour. So why was there such a big split? The reason is somewhat simple. Alonso spent most of the race not using DRS, and if he did get DRS, he was never really in touching distance to overtake, so he didn't get full benefit of a tow. Alex Albon, on the other hand in the Williams, spent the vast majority of his race in a massive train, getting a multi-car tow as well as DRS. He was in that train behind Kevin Magnussen. This multi-car tow included the Sauber, Alpine, Arbine, and as I just said, it was headed by the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, so that is why all the midfield teams have such a high top speed. Speaking of the midfield and their trolley train, let's now talk about the Haas team as they scored a very important point in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, and it was down to them playing the perfect team game. Kevin Magnussen was holding up the entire midfield after the safety car. In doing so, he racked up 20 seconds worth of penalties, but it also allowed his teammate Nico Hulkenberg, who did not stop under the safety car, to open up a gap when the race got back underway. Let's look at the times of Hulkenberg and compare that to Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda, who were trapped behind Kevin Magnussen. Here you can really see how Hulkenberg was able to open up that gap after the safety car. From lap 20 all the way to lap 32, you can see that Hulkenberg was lapping 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap faster. This is because the Great Wall of Magnussen was stopping anyone from moving forward. Let's now look at one of those laps so we can see just how Hulk did it. You can see that Tsunoda and Ocon have a massive straight line speed advantage due to getting DRS and being in the slipstream. However, through all of the actual corners on the circuit, you can see that Hulkenberg is massively faster. The reason for this is because Magnussen is purposely going slow through these sections where no one can do anything about it. No one can really overtake through these sections. He is also braking earlier, which you can see here. For Haas, this was a strategic masterclass and they scored an all-important point, which for the midfield I think will be very tricky to come by this year. I just want to say that if you are enjoying the video so far, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get back to the video and let's talk about the top 5 teams, starting with Aston Martin. For Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso, this was a very lonely race. He didn't have a great deal to do except keep his car on track and keep things clean, which is more than can be said for his teammate Lance Stroll, as he found the wall very early on in the race. Alonso though was in a world of his own. He was just about faster than the Mercedes of George Russell behind him, but he was slower than the McLaren of Oscar Piastri ahead of him, which you can see here when you look at the lap times for both drivers. For Aston Martin, they can be very happy with this result. In Bahrain, there was a concern that they had moved to 5th in the Constructors' Championship and they were going to be 5th fastest all along, as they were in a race all by themselves. But this result does show that there is life in the Aston Martin at high-speed circuits. However, my concern for them is the same as last year. They are a one-man team, and the first 2 races have once again exemplified that. Because of this, there is no way that they will finish any higher than 5th in the Constructors' Championship. For Mercedes, this was a difficult race for them and they dropped to 4th in the Constructors' Championship, which right now is where they belong. They opted for different setups between Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, and Hamilton had incredible straight line speed. However, he really suffered when it came to downforce through the corners. There was a moment during the race where he was all over the back of Norris after he stopped for soft tyres, and I brought that lap up because Hamilton was all over him as I just said, but then the corners came and Norris left him for dead. It was lap 45, and here you can see how Hamilton with slipstream and DRS was massively faster than Lando. However, when it came to the twisty sections, look at the amount of speed that Norris could carry, which Hamilton simply could not. This was my concern with Mercedes, that high-speed downforce is not their strongest point, and even though Hamilton may have been running with less downforce, it looks like this is still a concern for them, and they are weaker than McLaren in this area. They do have work to do, and thankfully for them they have a week off before the Australian Grand Prix to find some extra performance. For McLaren, they had a very solid race in my opinion, and they've now moved up to 3rd in the Constructors' Championship. Oscar Piastri finished the race in 4th place, but Lando Norris was down in 8th place. However, that was more due to them splitting the strategy because of the safety car, which did make things a little bit more tricky for Lando. This race was strong, but there was an issue that they will need to improve on, and that is speed in a straight line. The high downforce is absolutely working wonders for them, just as we saw with Norris pulling away from Hamilton. But it did mean that Oscar Piastri was actually stuck behind Lewis Hamilton until the medium tyres started to fade for Lewis. And you can see that here when you bring up the pace of Hamilton and Piastri. After Hamilton stopped and after Piastri got past him, you could see that Piastri was able to speed up by between half a second and a second per lap. This is how much time he was losing, and this is what stopped him from being able to get anywhere near the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Although I don't think he really would have been able to anyway. The top speed has been a bit of a concern for McLaren for over a year now, but until they do get stuck behind another car, it doesn't really matter. They just have to make sure that they can qualify ahead of the Mercs. They have right now, and thankfully for them, they have moved up to where they belong, which is 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship, and I have a feeling that the next race in Melbourne could be a good race for them. This is where they scored their first point last year, and this year they're arriving with a much better car. For Ferrari, Oliver Behrman did an incredible job stepping in for an ill Carlos Sainz. His pace was very impressive, and he was not afraid to take a risk, which is what we saw in the early stages of the Grand Prix. Let's compare his pace to teammate Charles Leclerc, who also had a very strong race and moved up to 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. As you would have expected, Charles Leclerc had a few tenths to half a second in his pocket per lap. But also remember, Behrman had to do some overtaking and come through the field. Charles Leclerc had to do the same thing as well, but with his experience and also being used to the car, he had it a bit easier than Behrman, even though the competition for Leclerc to overtake was a bit tougher. Behrman overall did a very good job, and he also did a great job looking after the tyres, as of course Charles Leclerc did as well, and Ferrari, as they seem to have improved in that area. It was always going to be difficult for Charles Leclerc to hold back Sergio Perez at this circuit, but Charles did absolutely everything he could to make it difficult. Ferrari right now are a clear 2nd fastest, but even for them, they still have work to do if they want to actually catch Red Bull at some point this year. And finally for Red Bull, they secured another very easy 1-2 finish, as they are in another world at the moment when it comes to race pace. Verstappen once again nailed absolutely everything and had a nice pace advantage, which you can see here when you look at the times of Perez, Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. It is going to be very difficult for anyone to catch Red Bull at their current form, and I have a feeling that Australia will be another simply lovely weekend for them, and I can see Max Verstappen equal his current record of 10 consecutive race victories. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. I'll see you again soon for the Australian Grand Prix. Thank you all so much for watching.